I've been hemming and hawing over what to do up on the bow, which is a project that I started a long time ago. And so this week I finally made the decision what to do. And I think it turned out really, really good. And plus we got to work on finishing up some other projects, including if I did some carbon hinges or not. So it was a great week of work. My name is Matt. Follow along as I turn Duracell, the legendary ocean racing sailboat, into a comfortable cruising home. Last summer, we built this bowsprit, which included cutting off part of the bow. We built a chain plate under here for the Code Zero, built the bowsprit over top of it. There was an old chain plate on this is the actual stem, it's like a bulkhead here. And there was a chain plate on there, so we had to cut this piece off. It was filled with foam. As you can see, this is all foam here. So it's kind of like a fake bow. Last summer, after I got this done, I was trying to decide whether I wanted to put this piece back on or build some shapely thing that came up and kind of blended the bowsprit into the boat a little more than this thing does. And back then I just said, well, I'm going to sit on this for a while and see what I come up with. And I didn't come up with anything. All I decided was that I'm not going to build some shapely thing that, you know, who knows how it will turn out. I kind of doubt I will be able to make it look as good as the original bow. Another reason I would like to keep this is just because, you know, I would like to keep the boat shaped like it used to be a little bit, at least. And so having the original bow, you know, will just harken back to the boat in its heyday. So anyway, I decided I'm going to put this old piece back on the boat. And so what I have to do is fiberglass it back in, fill it with foam. I'm going to use pour foam and fill the whole thing up. And I'm also going to, one funny thing about this whole thing has been, you'll notice that the bow comes up on this line, but the tow rail stops about, 10 inches short, 8 inches short. And so I'm also going to extend this tow rail out to match the bow so that it doesn't look so chopped out right here. I need to glass this piece in on the outside, so I'm sanding all the way through the paint and fairing down to the fiberglass in preparation for gluing and glassing this bow cap on. All right, last night I got all the fairing sanded off and the fiberglass prepped, both on the boat here as well as on the cap that I'm going to be replacing back onto the bow. So this is a pretty funny little project, especially since there's no like access on the back side of this thing when I put it on. So I glued on these, they're kind of like backing plates. They're basically replacing my taping that I would normally do on, you know, both sides of a fiberglass repair. Yeah, I just had some extra flat stock, just like thin pieces of fiberglass flat stock that I cut out and glued on here. And so I'll put glue on them and then they hold the piece in place. And so those will be, I'll have glue on the back side of it as well as fiberglass on the outside once I get it glued in place. And there'll be fiberglass all the way around. It's ready to go. We're gonna get it glued in place right now. I'm gonna use this Thick So Fast Cure again so that I can laminate later today. I will cure enough today that I'll be able to work on it again later. Once the epoxy had cured enough, I went ahead and laminated the bow piece to the boat. I'm just using 2 layers of my 17-ounce biax over the seams and under the bowsprit. time, I was also working on this tow rail extension. The goal here is to extend the tow rail on the deck to match the end of the bow. So here I am finding the line that the bow makes up to the top of the bowsprit, which is where the tow rail will end. I'm just using scraps of old foam cord flat stock that I used in other projects to build this tow rail. This is another funny project because I'm trying to make the bow look a little better with this giant bowsprit that's in the way. I love the look of the bowsprit, but I'm trying to match up the flat surfaces of the bowsprit with the curved surfaces of the hull, so it will unlikely be perfect. And of course this rail cannot be only for aesthetics, there should be a function as well, which is to keep your feet on the bowsprit a little further than it previously did. Otherwise, it's a very easy project to find the shape and then glue them in place. Again, this is where Total Boat's thick seal glue is so handy. I don't have to mix up a batch of thickened epoxy. I can just inject the glue right where I need it with little to no fuss. Lastly, I laminated over the new tow rails. The sides already have glass on them from being flat stock that I made previously. So I'm just laying on another layer of glass on the sides and 2 around the edges, giving the edge a lot more durability. And I vacuum bagged them because it's hard to make thick glass stick around edges and corners without making voids, where vacuum bagging really holds the fiberglass in place.
For those of you wondering how Matt and I are getting back to boat work and caring for our wonderful new 4-week-old baby, the Duracell project has a secret ingredient this summer, and that is my mom. She came up from California, she's living with us for the summer, and she's helping out so that Matt can get back to boat work and I can sneak away to edit and film, and we still have plenty of time for lots of baby cuddles in between. So far, so good.
This piece has been replaced. I glassed all the way around it. It should be totally sealed, except for these new holes that I drilled in it. The old bow, like I said, this is a false bow. The bulkhead is like right up here. And so this is all solid foam covered with fiberglass and some Kevlar actually. But it's pretty thin. And so I asked Evan if he thought I should fill this thing back up with foam. And his answer was that if you know, for bashing into waves, it could crush this piece if it's, you know, pretty thin glass. And it is pretty thin piece of glass. And I had already bought in the foam, and so I figured I might as well just fill it up. So how it works is it's a 1-to-1 polyurethane foam, and you mix them together. So watch. Pour it in your cavity, and then it just expands. How much it expands depends on how hot it is. I think it expands up to like 20 times its like liquid volume. And so I'm going to be mixing it up kind of small batches at a time. I'm going to do a pint first. All right, well, that went very, very poorly. I think, I don't know what I did wrong, if I maybe waited too long to pour it in the tube, or maybe my tube is too small. It seemed like it got too sticky to flow through the funnel and my hose. And so, but you can see how, I mean, how much it expands. I did get some in there. I have a lot more to go. So I have to think of a different way to get it in there. The problem is I can't pour it in because it's underneath underneath the bowsprit. So I have to think of a way to inject it in there. So, got to think of something else. All right, I think I've got a better method to get this foam injected into the bow. What I'm doing is mixing it in the cup and then dumping it into one of these empty, it's a caulking tube, and then just injecting it into the hole that's at the top of the bow. I just have to do this really fast because the chemical reaction happens very quickly and the materials start to foam and expand. Only 45 seconds after you mix them. Cool. So you can see this stuff is already expanding. It goes very quickly. So this was not a difficult project, getting these tow rails extended and getting the bow piece put back on. The difficult part about this is that I am not sure that I like it. And what we need to do is get the whole thing primed the same color, and then I'll know if it's really, I'm not going to cut it off or anything. I'm not going to change it. It is what it is. And I think it's the best we can do without doing something drastic. And like I said before, I really like the shape of the bow before we put the bowsprit on. And so like I said, wanted to maintain some of the original lines of the boat. I know that we've done major changes, but it's nice to keep some part of the boat intact. I'm curious to hear what you think. And like I said, once we get this all the same color, and especially once we get it primed, I am optimistic that it will look pretty good. So, yeah, curious to hear what your thoughts are. I think this is really cool.
Really cool.
So cool. The people have spoken, and we decided to put stainless hinges on these things. I like the holes that they provide, that they come with.
You like the holes in the deck?
I like the holes in the deck. I like all the sealant that I have to use.
They look pretty, like,
Bling.
flashy.
Mm-hmm. Very shiny.
Very shiny.
Mm-hmm. I'm just kidding. Of course I made carbon hinges.
In last week's video, you asked viewers whether they think you should keep the stainless steel hinges or build carbon hinges. And the overwhelming answer in the comments was build carbon hinges. And one person commented something like, for those in the know, carbon hinges are total boat bling. And I think this whole question about, whether you should do the faster route of stainless steel hinges or build your own carbon hinges really says a lot about your whole approach to this project. Don't you think?
Yeah, it's what makes getting to do this super unique, because I am not on, for one thing, I'm not on a schedule. Our schedule is getting stuff done every week so that we have something to show. But we are not obligated to get the boat in the water on some deadline. And so I really, really, really enjoy doing stuff like building and installing and using carbon hinges. And so given that I'm basically getting paid to build my own boat, I'm going to do all the cool things that I can think of, that I can afford, and that I enjoy doing. And so stuff like this are things that I would want on my dream boat, and so I get to do that, and I'm going to. And
you don't have to apologize.
And no, I don't have to apologize,
because our viewers apparently love the carbon hinges, because apparently they're a bunch of nerds too.
Yeah, and it's that is what's unique about this project to me, is it's like we're getting to do what we want to do with it, and
you're getting to build your absolute dream boat.
Yes.
Thanks to all our viewers and patrons.
Yeah, these are the kind of things that make, having the support that we have, doing this kind of thing, is the fruits of that support.
Yeah. It allows you to just be a total nerd and make carbon hinges.
Yeah. And they're right that it is a total boat bling thing, because a lot of boats would just install stainless, and there's nothing wrong with stainless as long as you install them correctly and all the stuff, that they will work really, really well, just as well as these will. And so, but the big advantage to these is obviously there's no fasteners, and hopefully, as long as I don't break them, there'll be zero maintenance.
And about maintenance. I mean, a lot of people ask you what you did before Duracell, and the answer is you were an independent shipwright, and you worked in a boatyard in Seattle for 8 years or something combined. But you fixed a lot of leaks in decks that came from bolts.
Totally.
So you know what it looks like maintenance-wise.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's the bane of every boat owner's existence, is finding water in the boat. Whether it's water you don't know where it came from in the bilge, or water that's absorbed into a foam or into a balsa cord deck, or a leaky window or whatever. It's the worst. And so wherever I can avoid that, if I can figure out a way to avoid it, I will. I had to grind out the fairing down to the fiberglass to get these hinges glued on. In grinding through the fairing, the hinge is now almost flush with the actual paint on the deck, and so once I sweep them with fairing and everything, these hinges will almost be invisible. I'll just sweep fairing over it, and they'll be, pretty much flush with the paint in the deck. And lastly, thank you for the encouragement to get the carbon hinges done. I think they turned out really, really good, and there are many more to come. Lastly, thank you very much to Magnus, a small boat sailor from Sweden. And of course, thank you very much to everybody who's been supporting the project. We'll see you next week.